Money, in a way, is the means through which one's own production is expressed socially, okay? In the speech, she tries to make this talk. I mean, what am I really doing with the dollars in my pocket that I've got? Well, presumably, if I've gotten this money legitimately and through by producing value that somebody's been willing to pay me for, it's how I express my value among you people. I mean, the things that I want, the things that I value, I now have a way of expressing socially and finding those of you in here or elsewhere who can deal with me on that basis. So I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that money's the means by which production, our own production, is expressed socially. I take money and I give money as a way of talking about the kinds of values I'm either getting or receiving from people around me. As we've been talking about in both Tom's talk and my first one, wealth is a result of creative effort. So wealth at root must be earned, and that's what she's talking about. And money can be the store of value that one has when we're talking about earning wealth, okay? I can store up the surplus in a medium which isn't exactly related necessarily to what I produce, but still reflects the amount of production and the amount of value I'm contributing to society. Now, if you grant me that we can hold value in money, that a bit of money is a way of storing value, then it can be exploited. Okay? So it doesn't matter if this, if this pen or this pencil represents a store of value of some sort. There are people who put their labor into it, and somebody bought it, and so forth. Well, you can take it away from me. Okay? That is, somebody can come along and steal it, or some other way exploit it. And money's no different. It's just a bit broader in the range of values it stores up, and because of that, it can be exploited by others. And that turns out to be important, I think, to the overall message. And we'll get back to it in a second. The second value, of course, was exchange. And, this is the typical thing that's said about money. Money is the medium of exchange. It's a way for you and I to relate to each other. We've got dissimilar interests. We've got dissimilar tastes. We've got dissimilar values. And yet we have a common denominator, right? You have a different religion. You're from a different culture. You have a different language. And what makes us the same? Well, interestingly, it's this bad thing that sometimes people say, it's money. One thing you and I can do, one way we can get along, despite all those differences we were just talking about, is I've got this dollar that you want, or you've got that dollar that I want, and now we can have some relationship with each other that we couldn't have if we looked to those other things, okay? And of course, just continuing pretty much what I've just said, exchange implies a person to exchange with. Money is a means by which we link ourselves to others, and so forth, as I just mentioned. Exchange is inherently voluntary, okay? And it's important to distinguish between involuntary exchanges, which aren't exchanges after all, but transfers, right? Exchange is something that's inherently voluntary. Transfer doesn't have to be voluntary. You can take resources from me and give it to somebody else. That's a transfer, but it's not an exchange, okay? Money is really a medium of exchange. I think I like that term because if you're willing to grant me that exchange is inherently voluntary, then the essence of money is to be in a relationship that is essentially voluntary. Now, we all know that doesn't always happen, right? Governments and other people do transfers. They take money and give it to somebody else, okay? But again, I'm talking about what is essential to money, and I think Rand's point in this speech is to say, look, essentially, money is about voluntary exchange. That's its main purpose. That's what it's about, in essence. And of course, that's just another way of saying what? Money is linked directly to the value of liberty. Okay, and that's talked about as well. Respect and money. I mean, this may sound a little silly at first, but I think it's actually perhaps very important. In a way of institutionally respecting each other, there are lots of ways to respect, and I don't pretend to exhaust all the ways you can respect another person, but institutionally, one way of respecting another person is through property rights. Property rights, I think, say individuals own their own lives and are responsible for their direction, okay? And respecting another person's property is a way of respecting them. I mean, I'm not disassociated from, you know, my property, my things even, right? This is my computer. If you walk up here and start banging on it and doing nasty things to it, well, it's not just you're doing something to an object, you're doing something to me, right? And vice versa. The objects you have, the property that you possess, is somehow a part of you, and to respect that is a way of respecting you. Okay, so I think that's why property rights are a form of institutional respect. Now again, it's not all forms of respect, but you know, for the most part, let's say most of the people you deal with most of the time are really essentially strangers to you. And one way of respecting them is to respect their property once you know what their property is. You may not know anything about their religion. Maybe if you knew about their religion, you wouldn't even respect it. I don't know. But respecting them as persons, institutionally, one way of doing it is to respect their property. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, money makes one's values transparent. How you spend your money tells us something about, you know, what you value, right? I mean, economists often say that people speak with their actions much louder than they speak with their words. It's very easy for me to stand up here and say all sorts of good things. You know, I'm in favor of motherhood and all sorts of things, but, you know, if all I do is spend my money to stay away from my mother, it's not really clear that I value motherhood, right? And you can tell what I might value by how I spend my money. And unfortunately, that makes me very transparent to other people, right? I can't hide that fact. You can go into my house and you can learn some things about me because it will tell you how I've spent some of my money. You know, if I've got a lot of movies on my shelf, well, you know that Doug likes movies, right? I mean, that tells me something. And if you want to have a conversation with me, we can talk about movies because you see all these movies on my shelf, which, by the way, is true. So, you know, you can tell about people's values by how they spend their money. But you can't give a person value by giving them money, okay? And they cannot give themselves value by the mere possession of money. And this is, I think, as far as I know, been true of most ethical codes, most religious systems tell you that, you know, you can't find happiness with money. There are various versions of this. You can't find value with money. Well, that's true, and that's right. I mean, the value that you have in your life has to somehow come from you. The mere possession of money doesn't give you value, right? Presumably, it's supposed to work exactly the other way, as I just said. The way you spend your money is expressive of the values you have, and that's where it should be. Money's a tool, it's a medium, it's not an end in itself, right? That's one of those assumptions that I want to question. So what you are like as a person should determine how you use your money, okay? Not the reverse. So what I would conclude from this is that in a world of free exchange,